Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and welcome back to PorscheCooled. My name is Michael Barth, and this is the last podcast. This is the last episode of PorscheCooled that I will be doing. I don't think that I'll bring it back. I mean, we might come back, or I might come back with another podcast, but this is going to be the last episode for PorscheCooled for now. I wasn't going to do this episode. I didn't think that I needed to talk about it. Because there's not much to talk about, really. But I just thought I owed it to all you guys, all the guys that have listened to, all you guys that have listened to me from the very beginning. You know, all the support we've had from, episode 1 for those handful of, those bunch of solo episodes that I did way back in 2019. And then when Steve joined in 2020 during COVID. And as you guys know, being fans of Steve as well, is that Steve and I couldn't do it anymore. It just got too difficult. I was traveling again. And the timing and just personal things for both of us just made it really, really difficult. I'm not going to dwell on the fact that the podcast takes a long time. It takes a long time when we were pushing out 2 episodes a week, or I was pushing out 2 episodes a week, one with Steve and one owner stories. I did it because I enjoyed it. I did it because I had the time to do it. Going forward, I really I don't have the time, and I really, as much as I love doing the podcast, I really don't have the headspace for it at the moment. So that's where it is. So let me just do a very short episode today, not very long. Beautiful day here in London, though. It's unbelievably hot, but a very, very beautiful day. That means nothing to this episode, so I don't even know why I added that in. You can see I'm sort of scrambling here to what to say. But, when I started the podcast back in 2019, and I've said this in the Hey Mate episode when Steve and I stopped recording, I never thought it would get to this point. Those of you who have known me for a long time, and there's a few of you, have known that in 2016 I started a YouTube channel. It was a bit of a weird YouTube channel. It was a vlog type YouTube channel, I guess. I just sort of started things. I like to start things and see how they progress and see if things happen, not for the fame or popularity or for acknowledgement, but just to see if I can keep it up and see if I can do it. I like to learn new things. But in 2016, and then I did the Trying to Be Sensible video. If you haven't seen it, you can go and watch it on YouTube. One of my first videos where people started talking to me, noticing me, and started talking to me about Porsche. And that's where it all started. It all started with passion. It all started with buying my first Porsche in 2017. It's 5 years later, I'm still talking about it. I'm still talking about it because I really, really like it. But for those of you who don't know, it's been a bit of a journey to get to the podcast, and I think this is a pretty important thing for people who are starting podcasts. It's like, you have to have other things that are, if you're after the popularity and the fame and sponsors, which we weren't, you have to start somewhere. And like I said, I've had that history of YouTube. I also wrote for Drive Tribe quite a lot. I can't remember what year it was, on their Money Bucks program and on Drive Tribe, just writing articles about mainly Porsche. They're still up there, I think. And then into the podcast, you know what I mean? So my passions have always been about Porsche. My passion or my motivation to start anything is not about being popular and not, any sort of fear of missing out of not being the Porsche person or the Porsche podcast that people want to listen to. That was never the intention. It's never been the intention. And I think if that's anyone's intention to start anything on social, it's not the good thing to do. You should just do it because you like it. You do it because you like it. And if you like it, good things will come. And you'll meet a lot of great people along the way, and you'll enjoy it. If you're always chasing the numbers and always looking at numbers and worried about that sort of stuff, or trying to beat the other podcast that's, in the same category as you, well, then I think you're always going to lose. So what else? But also I think, I think the podcast space has changed. I think, my problem is that I always tend to, and I'm not going to say give up, but I always tend to stop things before they get really super popular. Whether it be an online store that I did years ago, to other things that I've started along the way, which I'm not going to get into in this episode. But I always tend to stop things before they're popular. And my wife always says that to me. So, the podcast thing is not over. Podcasts are growing, day by day. Obviously, podcasts during COVID and during lockdown were, I think, a lot more popular because people were looking for things to do. Obviously, in summer, people don't listen to as many podcasts. but I'm not going to divulge the total downloads of PorscheCooled, but of course it's in the hundreds of thousands, and it's quite surprising to me that many people have listened to our little podcast, which is fantastic, and I really, really appreciate it. But I do think the podcast space in Porsche and automotive, both Porsche and automotive, has changed. I don't know whether it's changed for the best. I think that, you always have a passion for something, if it's Porsches or Ferraris or whatever. Obviously, any passion has to be supplemented by other things. You shouldn't just be, use the word self-indulgent and insular in your way of thinking. You should always look outside the square and also look outside the circle and be interested in other things as well and acknowledge other things are good. I think that's really, really important. And I know a lot of the listeners and most of you guys do that. But I think some of the podcasts that are coming out and some of the old podcasts that I used to listen to have become a little bit like that. So I stopped listening to them. What else? That's it. I think that's about it. But like I said, we did it because we enjoyed it. And I think that's about it. What did I want to say? I wanted to say a few thank yous just very, very quickly. This podcast, even though he doesn't say it, had anything to do with him, without Steve as a co-host, without Steve's, Steve and my chemistry, as you can, you can't fake chemistry. Chemistry is really, really important. I think you guys, even though Steve and I kind of don't see it, you guys have made it pretty obvious to us from all the comments I've received that, you really enjoy the rapport between Steve and I, the chemistry between Steve and I. So I'd like to say, Steve has been an integral part of this, and I know Steve's doing other things that he's going to probably share in times to come about with Porsche things. But at the moment, I just want to say thanks to Steve, and also not forgetting other people who have contributed to the podcast. There's all the people from Owner Stories. But before I get into that, I've got to say thank you to Marco, who's stepped in a couple of times. Marco's been great. Marco's a friend in Sydney, so thank you, Marco, for doing that. I'm sorry there hasn't been more episodes. Ajmal, flat cap driver. Ajmal and I, we used to talk a lot in the beginning. So Ajmal was on a couple of the podcasts. We also did an Instagram live together. So in the early days, a couple of years ago or 2 years ago, 1 year ago. So I want to say thank you to Ajmal, a flat cap driver. If you haven't heard of Ajmal already, just go and follow him on Instagram or YouTube. And also James at Porsche Platz. James has been on the podcast once on Owner Stories and then once to fill in. He helped me out on one episode, I think, when I was in Bahrain. James is a great guy. James's Porsche Platz, RSR Classics. If you're looking for a Porsche to buy, that's the person to see if you're trying to source the right one. He's based in Melbourne, in Australia. Then you've got all the Owner Stories. 180. What are we up to? 82 Owner Stories. 82 Owner Stories, the last Owner Stories last Tuesday. 82 Owner Stories, 190 episodes over 3 years. Hundreds of thousands of downloads. So many followers. PorscheCooled on Instagram, almost 21,000 followers. A lot. Obviously not a lot of those followers are podcast people, but it's all connected in my mind. So, like I said, you do something you love. You don't plan it, and as long as the passion is there, as long as you're being true to what you like and what you enjoy, and you just be yourself, then good things will happen. All right, that's about it. So that's it. Sunday morning here in London. This is the last podcast, but thank you everyone. Thank you so much. Oh, sorry, one more thing before I go. All the Patreon members, thank you to all the Patreon members, all the new Patreon members too, all the new members that signed up, which I probably didn't give a shout out because I haven't been doing those episodes for a shout out. But there was a lot of new Patreon members. There was a lot of old members that came back that stopped their membership when I stopped the podcast for a little bit, and then they came back. Then there's all the new members, like Dan, who's been on Owner Stories number 73, Maurice, Greg from Owner Stories 74, Nick, Architect Driving in Melbourne on Instagram. Thank you, Nick. Freddie, also Owner Stories, Lee, and James at Porsche Platz as well. Thank you, James. That's about it. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.